Welcome back to the Nerdrotic channel. My name is Gary Beekler. I am live in San Francisco, California, and I come to you now at the turn of the tide. This is pretty good news. Buffy is now a sequel. So it seems like there's been some clarification. What they did was with the Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot, they ran the flag up to see who was going to salute, and everybody saluted with a resounding group of middle fingers, and they listened apparently. So let me preface by saying that the Buffy reboot, when they announced it over the weekend of Comic-Con, is a deal in its very early stages. There's no production group behind it. They have a showrunner. Okay, the showrunner is the one who ran Midnight Texas and has worked on Lost a little bit. But Joss Whedon will be an executive producer, but it doesn't have a network yet. It's not really a show. It's just an idea right now. So they ran that up the flagpole. Everybody was pissed off on both sides, which was kind of amazing and kind of funny. And that's the whole point of this video. So they've decided they're all, no. The reboot word was a mistake. We are going to make it a sequel. And thank you to the wonderful Susan Layton, who tweeted this and brought it to my attention. And on 1428elm.com, which is a great website because they hired our own Susan Layton. And so if any website that is smart enough to do that, we're going to listen to. So I present the article to you here. Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot will actually be a sequel. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is going to be resurrected in an upcoming TV series, and the show will serve as a continuation of the Sarah Michelle Gellar series. We can put down the torches and pitchforks now. Well, at least for the time being. Recently, we reported the news that the beloved 90s show Buffy the Vampire Slayer was getting a modern resurrection. As you'd expect, anytime the word reboot is used with anything, the news wasn't met with the warmest reception. For many old school Buffy fans, rebooting the show is nothing short of a cardinal sin. It is sacrilege, I say. Now, as reported by The Verge, I'm sure a very good website that I don't go to, it's been clarified that the new series will actually serve as a sequel taking place 20 years after the events of the 90s series. A new Slayer will apparently rise to the occasion to take on the vampires of today. While there is no other details of the plot or its characters beyond that, now that they're not just retelling the same story with a new actress in Buffy's shoes. Of course, this also brings up many questions. If Buffy isn't the lead character and we're following a new Slayer, do we still call it Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Or is her name also Buffy, which is probably what they're going to do. I don't know. And if all of those characters from the classic series still exist in the new show, what are the odds of seeing Sarah Michelle Gellar coming back for at least a cameo? Certainly, there are questions. Certainly, these questions are all much more exciting than simply asking why they're rebooting the show, which is true, which is absolutely true. And that was written by Jeremy Dick. Thank you, Jeremy Dick. Nice name there. So the first off, we all know how we get a new Slayer. The previous Slayer has to die. Now, Buffy did die. That's why we got Faith. So I would think that we could still have Buffy around, but maybe Faith has died, because I don't think we'll see Elizabeth Dushku with anything related to Joss Whedon for in real life purposes, maybe. However you feel about Joss Whedon these days, I try to separate the art from the artist. Not really a fan of his act. But I love his stuff. I'm a huge fan of Buffy. Love that damn show. It's one of my favorite all-time shows. So I think this is really good news. And this is what you should do. And this is where the teachable moment comes in for Star Trek Discovery. Yes, I like to pick on Star Trek Discovery. Yes, it's low-hanging fruit, but I'm going to pick it. This is what you should have done with Star Trek Discovery. And they went ahead and doubled down and decided to screw up canon. If you make a sequel, set it way in the future, which you can do with Star Trek Discovery, Buffy's going to have a lot of problems. and I'll get to those in a second. But with Star Trek, if you set stuff 100 years out from the next generation, you can, like, I still wouldn't like it, but you can introduce your spore drives and you still can't have torches on a spaceship and sonar in space. That's still fucking ridiculous. But other than that, you can have the Klingons, changing their look. Maybe there's some eugenics involved or something. You could explain a lot more stuff easily and create your own canon. As horrific as it sounds, you wouldn't be getting the backlash that you're getting now if you just said it in the future. This is something I said pretty much every recap. I recapped every show. You can go back and check that. I tried to give Star Trek Discovery the fairest chance I could. And I didn't like it. I still didn't like it. My co-host John at the time did like it. So you do get 2 points of view on the recap if you can stand John being wrong for, how many episodes it was, 10. I can't remember. So, I don't know how Buffy fans, I'm at least encouraged that this is going to be a sequel and not a prequel. Am I going to watch it? I don't know. I'll probably give it a shot. Cause I wouldn't have considered it before, but now I'll at least watch the pilot. If it becomes a show. This is not a guaranteed thing. We're all talking about a show that has been optioned, but not greenlit. There's a big difference. I've had a lot of friends who have had a lot of properties optioned, and they get a little bit of a check, and then their stuff never gets made. A great example of this is The Boys, which was optioned 2 or 3 times, the comic book series, and almost made into a movie and then shelved. And now it's finally going to be a series on Amazon, which we can't wait. This will be a shorter video, but if you're a new subscriber, I do everything live because I like to hear from you. Who cares what I think? I'm just an old comic retailer. That's all I am. So we'll get in here, and Grady Boyle says, once you catch STD, it's really easy to clear it up, even without a doctor's prescription, by simply canceling CBS All Access. Yeah, and are they going to make us pay for Buffy like Star Trek Discovery? I shall not see STD, only the reviews of it. I was out of STD season 1 after episode 5, says Master Cam. A lot of people were. CBS All Access did not release any kind of ratings, but the interest in the show fell as far as our recaps after episode 5, and it kind of dipped after that. STD is bad for your health. Now, so Buffy fans, I'm curious to see what you think, and please leave a comment. I'm for a moratorium on reboots and even sequels to old properties for a decade. Can we just stop? There is so much other stuff out there that we can adapt. There's some great books out there. I'm sure you in the chat right now and in comments could come off stuff off the top of your head that hasn't been adapted yet. Like, Transmetropolitan is a great comic book. Make that a TV series. BPRD, which is related to the Hellboy universe, which would be a brilliant TV show. Those are the 2 I can think of right now. And BPRD would be great for Buffy fans if you like the whole vampire-y demon kind of thing. I actually think it kind of does it better, in my opinion. STD equals monkey / The Expanse equals Mozart. Well said, Bad Bunny. Well said. Does it make me a bad person if I wish the new Star Trek show would be canceled? Never had a wish before. On any other show, and surely not for Star Trek now. Master Cam, no, it is not. I wish it would get canceled. And it could. I thought it was very interesting that they called it Star Trek Discovery is called Chapter 1 and season 2 is called Chapter 2. I think that's telling a little bit. They had to renew it, Star Trek Discovery. It would have looked horrible. They just launched. CBS All Access was based on Star Trek Discovery. It was supposed to come out earlier. There were so many delays. There's a lot of Big Brother fans and stuff, and there's some other stuff there, but they really put all of it into Star Trek Discovery. $10 million an episode. $10 million an episode it cost for that show, which is insane. Which is now we find out, because we talked about it in the last Friday podcast, is not the most expensive show, not even close. Altered Carbon was more expensive. The Lord of the Rings show, which just got some writers, which is a little bit discouraging because they're related to J.J. Abrams. And it seems like everybody's related to J.J. Abrams. Like, why is he the anointed one? Okay, I don't understand that. Even the new showrunner here, I always mess up her name, is Monica Awusi Breen, is the new showrunner for Buffy, and she wrote for Alias and Lost. I did like Alias. Okay, I'm glad to see she's a showrunner. I'm glad she got some work. I'd never watched Midnight Texas. And quite frankly, when Joss Whedon took over what was doing Buffy, he had done nothing before that. So she could actually make a good show. I'll totally give her a chance. And if it's good, that's great. We'll totally support it, and we'll, go to the hilltops and scream if it's a good show. But if it's not, we'll say that too. I also want to bring you attention. I'll get back to you guys in the chat. Again, this will be somewhat of a short one. We usually do hour-long videos. This will be about 20, 25 minutes. I wanted to show this Mary Sue article that I referred to in our last Friday podcast. If you want to also check out a really good podcast, we do a live podcast every Friday night where we interact with the chat. They are the most fun to do here on the channel. Please check them out with my co-hosts Dennis and Susan Layton from 1428elm.com. So here's a Mary Sue article that I kind of agree with and I kind of don't. So this is the words of Princess Weeks. Okay. And the headline again, and as I read this, I am reading a headline and these are not the opinions of the Nerdrotic channel. No, I don't want a Black Buffy reboot, and here's why. I'll just read the first couple paragraphs. I'll leave a link in the description so you can read the rest. When the news broke over the weekend, and this was last weekend, announcing that Joss Whedon was not only launching a Buffy reboot, but doing so with a Black female lead, my reaction was a very heavy sigh. There was a time when this kind of news would have excited me in ways I can't even explain. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of my favorite shows in spite of many things, but not only am I not interested, sorry, damn it, I need to learn to turn off my phone. Not only am I not interested in a reboot, but this would make the Black lead, as reported by Deadline, this move to make a Black lead, as reported by Deadline, is just a bad move on multiple levels for me. Okay, again, I'm going to state this is the opinions of Princess Weeks. Okay, I'm wondering if that's a real name or his. I'm not sure. Don't get me wrong. It's not inclusive casting that I'm objecting to. I just want Black women to get their own stories. Now, that right there, I totally fucking agree with. I couldn't agree with that more. I can't tell you how much I would agree with it. And this is something a lot of us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but a lot of us in our community have been saying, and it's been spun as something else. We have been called names for wanting just this. Is slapping a label on something is counterintuitive. It's not good. Okay, it's better. We want Black women, we want women, we want anybody of any race to be in any show. I don't care what people look like. Never did. But they, having their own stories shows that the creators actually have faith in that demographic, and they believe they can actually push it. By slapping a label on something, it actually, I think it's adverse. I think it's bad. And I think it's a cheap way of putting stuff out. So that's my opinion. So Buffy Summers, as played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, was rebooted character herself, improved upon the 1992 film that starred Christy Swanson and more. And over the course of 7 seasons, the version of Buffy was the one people connected with, and out of whom, with huge fandom, has grown. A giant fandom, a fandom that you can't put into a demographic. That was the great thing about Buffy, is everybody loved it. It's just all walks of life loved it. And it's only recently that fandom has been really broken up into sections, and there's a lot of people guilty of doing this. and not the ones you think. Sarah Michelle Gellar is Buffy, an African-American actress who enters the role, is forever going to be known as the Black Buffy, and that sometimes that is something I find frustrating. And I can't argue with that. The thing is, though, if the show is good, it won't matter. And that's all. If it's written well, no matter that's probably how it will start out, whether it was a reboot or sequel. If they call her Buffy, I don't know how they're gonna do that, but they're probably just gonna call her Buffy. If it is written well, it's a good show. Nobody's gonna care about this shit. Nobody. And that's what a lot of us have been saying all along. Okay. So and as far as Star Trek Discovery, and this is a totally different point. Again, I will say, why did you do prequel? Like, why? And people will probably say, why don't you let this go? Well, that's not how YouTube channels work, unfortunately. So let's get back to, we got a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. From Dakota Stanton, just wanted to say have a fun stream and that I will be in NYC for a few days. Any good spots? You'll have to ask somebody who's been to New York City. I have not been to New York City in a long time. Rough Girl's back. What's up? How's it going? $1.99. There we go. So, with the whole, I don't care what the new character looks like. And it actually, I'm very happy to hear it's a sequel. If you put it 20 years ahead, it doesn't really matter who Buffy is. I guess they're going to call him Buffy. That would be, again, very interesting. So I think they listen to the fans. And now you have a possibility of succeeding with this show. And maybe they looked at what happened with Star Trek Discovery and went, do we really want to go down that road? Do we want to stick to our guns and be fighting? When you don't want to be going through that, believe me, the word from the CBS executives is they are not happy at all with how Star Trek Discovery Season 1 turned out. That's why they brought in Pike. That's why the Enterprise is being brought in. That's why the writers were canned halfway through the show. So I will agree with Doomcock that I think we are winning. I think we are slowly winning. And, some will ask, what are you trying to win? We want good stuff. Okay. We don't want Gilmore Girl writers writing science fiction when they don't even bother researching. I mean, you can write Gilmore Girls if you do your due diligence, research the canon for Star Trek and actually give a shit, then fine, great. But it just did. I watched the show and it didn't appear that anybody gave a shit about the canon. And I am not the biggest, Trekkie or Trekker in the world. We must stop the Drekkers. What is up, Mr. E2099? How's it going? Not sacrilege, just plain unnecessary. You're right, Marg Mignata. It's just unnecessary. Is Buffy that good? It was fine in the 90s, but after True Blood, who would need a show about vampires? Well, David Fox, if True Blood had ended decently, I would agree with you. I did enjoy True Blood until that horrific last season and that horrific season finale that undercut the entire show and basically gave the middle finger to everybody who watched it. Is the comic still canon? Says Underworld Dream. I would hope so, because I didn't read season 8 and 9 are great. They're great. I would imagine so. That's a good question. Going down the chat here. Discovery deserves the hate. It does. It does. STD is an abomination, says Mako. It is. They should have picked Axanar, says Nigel Brought Savage. Agreed. And on top of what Star Trek does, this has been repeated a lot, but it wasn't just Star Trek Discovery. It wasn't just the splitting of the fans. It was the treatment of the people who were doing the fan shows, the fan made shows. That was abhorrent. That was disgusting. I'm currently in the middle of season 6 of Buffy. Never watched the last 3 seasons, says Mastercam. Season 6 is very dark. I think half the writers were going through divorces at the time. By the way, very little Star Trek at London Film and Comic Con or BSG, says Nigel. Yeah, there was. I didn't see a single STD cosplayer at San Diego Comic Con, and that tells you everything. Going down the chat here. Thank you again for the super chat. Oh, what, rough girl. If they turn Buffy into this, if into a This Is Us, I'm out. Yeah, basically. I could not agree more. And thank you for the super chat. Hash Father, doesn't STD have scientific advisors who correct obvious howlers? No, they don't, because sonar in space. There's your t-shirt, Doomcock. I mean, like, Doomcock's the one who pointed that out. Okay, Doomcock gets all the credit for pointing out sonar in space. They should say standard. Yeah, right. Les Moonves was too busy harassing women to worry about Star Trek canon, allegedly. So true, Mako. Mutters Buffy Buck Rogers crossover. All Buck, no Duck. They need to bring back Buck Rogers. I freaking love that show. They had flipping mushroom drives. Yeah, the whole Paul Stamets, mushrooms. I'm sure they're going to have like a DMT episode, and they can invite like Joe Rogan on, and yeah, and they can go to a DMT planet and remake Star Trek V and talk to God. I give Joe Rogan a hard time. I watch that podcast all the time. Oh dear God, True Blood was crap in comparison to either Buffy or Angel. Yes, not even in the same boat. You know what? I'll give it this. True Blood started with a lot of promise. It did. It certainly did. You can't cosplay a spore. Showman Frost, you cannot. The mushroom drives were pretty bad, and the magic tardigrades who ride them through the universe. Yeah. Yeah. Fig leaf costume. That's from other Star Trek, though. Bad Bunny. There was one reboot, cosplayer Star Trekker, but no stands or groups. No STD either. Ripping awesome Discworld group from what's her name again? I don't know. I was expecting the new Buffy to end up being just like the other CW style shows, says Silver Spike. And yeah, that's what we need to worry about. And I was referring to that earlier. It's like, it's got a whole bunch of other problems on its own. Like, it's going to be a show written in current year, which is problematic for a lot of people. There seems to be a lot of restraints on writing these days because we live in a world of new puritanism. And I don't know how they're gonna part of what was charming about Buffy was I know it's not really loved right now, but the dialogue, I was a fan of the dialogue, and it was kind of sexy, and shows just aren't sexy anymore. They're not, which is bad. Were there any STD cosplayers at Comic-Con, Gary? No, Mako, there were not. Zero. Not even at the panel that I witnessed. Okay, there could have been some. I could have missed them, but I did my due diligence of walking the floor a couple of days, quite a bit. I saw a lot of Incredibles. I saw a lot of women dressed as Kylo Ray. That was different. And I will say this con this year was I would say there was more women there than men. There was more women there than men. That was the most women I've ever seen at Comic-Con. And I go back to the days where the only women you saw there were the hardcore geek girls, which there were, but that's 1 in 100 guys maybe, and booth babes. Or somebody brought their wife or girlfriend. And that's going like 20 years back. Star Trek V was a masterpiece compared to STD. Nyla Shadow, you are correct. I actually like Star Trek V. Why does God need a spaceship? I love Buck Rogers. That used to be my favorite show. I know. I freaking love that show. I mean, it was basically they used all the sets from Battlestar Galactica, and I didn't care. Aaron freaking Gray. I got to meet her at Comic-Con. She is super nice. You can cosplay as a Spore, just please don't. Kids gotta go. These kids gotta go to these shows, you know. Yes, they do. They do. Do you miss Rick Berman and Brandon Braga yet, Mako? Yes. I think in a previous podcast, I made my public apology to Rick Berman, who, prior to if I had had a podcast in the late 90s, it would have been dedicated to hating Rick Berman. And I will repeat it again. I'm sorry. I take back everything I said. You're a freaking genius. Please come back. Please come back. I used to think his Star Trek got a little boring, kind of had to stick up its butt. We can make an argument that still was, but compared to what we're getting now, again, I'm sorry. I take back everything I said. Anything I can do I'll wash your cars. I'll do something to make up for it because I do feel bad. Rough Girl says, as a black woman, I agree. $1.99. Thank you, Rough Girl. I want people to have their own characters, their own stories. I want to see new stuff. I'm tired of rebooted stuff, and give us new stories and make whatever lead you want. I don't care. Just give us good new stories. Stop treading on stuff that it's never going to be better. There is some exceptions, Battlestar Galactica. I was totally against the reboot until I saw the miniseries. And then I was like, okay, I'm wrong. But that's an outlier. Okay. I'm okay with women cosplaying as shirtless Kylo Ren. How's your father? They were actually pretty good cosplayers. I'll give them that. I like Star Trek V as well. It's still the worst of the original films, but it was fun. It had the best Kirk, Spock, McCoy interaction since the original series. Nihilist Shadow could not agree more. I love the scene in Yosemite. I love Yosemite, by the way. It's one of my favorite places on Earth. Yeah, I dug it. And Jim Kirk free climbing, come on. And then Spock flying up to get that was good stuff. On a lighter note, Zachary Quinto is following in his footsteps of Leonard Nimoy by hosting the new In Search Of. The first episode about aliens was interesting. Philip A. Dimmick, I saw that after we watched Ancient Aliens. I'm definitely going to check that. In Search Of is the reason I'm into aliens and all that stuff was In Search Of. In Search Of used to be on right around the same time down in San Diego when I was a kid, that Project Blue Book. They would come on like right after each other. And thank you again for the super chat, Rough Girl. You are a warrior, straight up. Albert Epstein says, yes, Aaron Gray. Again, really freaking nice. It's like she's one of the few people I waited in line, paid $20 to have her autograph, but like she took time to we sat and chatted for like 10 minutes. I almost had her at the shop. We couldn't get it together though. Well, Brandon Braga is one of the writers for The Orville, says Mako. Yes, and that's why The Orville is one of the best shows on TV and probably one of the top 2 shows that I'm looking forward to this year. Fox probably misunderstood what old Buffy was about and thinks it's just Charmed under a different name, said Silver Spike. Funny that you bring that up because the new showrunner used to write for Charm. And you're right, Silver Spike. And Silver Spike would know, has worked in the industry. Did I miss your comment, DL Master? I'll go up. I'm sorry. We got 5 more minutes before I'm going to cut this one off. Okay. How's your photo? It did though, but they did fuck up a lot of good things. It had there were supposed to be many crossovers with Angel, and there was supposed to be a Charmed one as well. Oh, you're talking about when they moved to CW or from the Paramount Network. There was supposed to be a lot of stuff with Buffy and Angel. They were supposed to go on longer. DLS Master and Joss took on too many shows, kind of like what Noah Hawley's doing right now. He took on way too many shows. So he had Firefly, Angel, and Buffy going, and we all know what happens to Joss when he gets stressed out. Okay. We saw his act after Avengers Age of Ultron. That was kind of one of the things that really soured me on him, when he started talking a lot of shit. And yes, what's up? I love comics. Happy birthday, by the way, E. Hey, cutie. Seems like you came at the end. Yeah, this is just a reaction video. This is going to be a long one. It probably has gone on too long as it is. So I'm going to have to cut this off. Watch the 30th anniversary of Star Trek: The Next Generation the other day, and yikes. Then yesterday I saw Miriam Citrus might be in Frakes' directed episode of Star Trek Discovery. Interesting. I'll give Jonathan Frakes this. He directed the best episode of Star Trek Discovery. They need to have more of them on. We'll see. We're covering the show, but I really hope the Orville doesn't get canceled. I hope not either. I think it'll be fine with Disney owning Fox for a while. We won't see any big changes, but about 5 or 6 years in, we'll see Disney start meddling, as they always do. There'll be some autonomy for a while, and then, the greatest example of what is going on, and the whole microcosm, is Marvel Comics. What's happened to Marvel Comics is moving its way into television and movies, and they, at first, especially after walking out of Comic-Con, I thought they have learned nothing, and I was really discouraged. But now you see stuff like Buffy, like the changing from reboot to sequel, I think is a big deal. And you're welcome, Rough Girl. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I think it's a little victory, even though that's probably what they were going to do all along. And they just, they don't care enough to think about words like reboot and sequel. And they got to understand that this isn't 1996 anymore. People are going to, people like me, assholes, are going to make videos on this stuff. So you got to measure your words. And yeah, reboot is a bad word to all of fandom. Period. Why can't they just have a new show about a girl fighting vampires? Why does this have to be called Buffy? Daniel Nolan, my wife, came up with the best idea. Why not make it Blade's mom? Do something like that. Put it in the Blade universe. Do something like that. Set it firmly in the Blade universe, and then we can get Blade, and not call anything Buffy at all, and just have a new fucking show, or not related to it. Just have, like you said, just have a show about a person fighting vampires. It doesn't need to be, if you want it to be in the Buffy universe, fine, but set it somewhere completely different. I think they should, if you want to set it, I would say do Frey, go futuristic. That would be fun to see Frey interpreted. They even had the Frey weapon at the end of Buffy in season 7. So, well, they threw this out there, and they have no idea what they wanted. No script, nothing. Silver Spike, you're right. It was they ran it up the flagpole to see who was going to salute. These deals happen a lot during the weekend of Comic-Con, even though they weren't particularly at Comic-Con. You have a lot of creative people in one place, so a lot of deals got made, and I would say 5% of them will actually happen. You thought Frey was awful? I liked Frey. I thought the comic was good. But we could agree to disagree. Double checking what I said. Marina Citrus was actually being the Frakes directed episode of Orville. Okay, Bishop Facts. Cool. Yeah, I wonder if Frakes is going to come back for Star Trek Discovery. They should make a bad show hunter starring Doomcock with guest stars you, Dennis, and Susan. Hell yeah. All hail Doomcock. All hail Doomcock. All right. Bad Bunny. Balls. Anita Blake, necromancer, vampire slayer. It makes 50 Shades of Grey look like child's play. This is Eddie Colton. And there we will end it. Thank you for attending my little reaction video. I hope it made sense to some of you. So, to sum it all up, Star Trek Discovery, you should have gone with a sequel and not a prequel. You should have done what Buffy's doing right now, because Buffy is now not going to have all kinds of crazy heat on them just by simply changing a word. That's it. They simply replaced the word reboot with sequel. And while all the problems aren't going to go away, believe me, 75% of the heat is gone now. It's over with. The torches are put down and we can all move on with our lives. But Star Trek Discovery didn't want to do that. So it's on. And that's great because it's actually been great for the channel. So doors and corners, everybody. You're quite welcome, Steve Nyman. And again, happy birthday, England team. He's 88 this year. He sounds great for an 88-year-old, by the way. Very vital, very vital. So after Twilight, I gave up on vampire movies. Slurmy Scott, there is a whole video in Twilight did ruin everything. It kind of did. So everybody, you have a great Sunday. Check us out later tonight. If you want to watch us live, we're going to be covering Preacher. And then there's the Monday Nooner. Every Monday, I do a live stream for 2 to 3 hours at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. And How's Your Father? There will be another live stream tonight at 8:15 for Preacher. Or if some other news comes up. Donkey balls. So Buffy fans, be happy. It's a sequel, not a reboot. Ciao, everybody.